Who's going to bring a change? Who is going to be accountable? Who is going to lead? There are 101 questions which needs answers. It's time for a revolution. It's time we see Africa in a different point of view. It's time when Africans see Africa in a different point of view. In today's episode, perhaps Dr. Ehi can shed some light on some of these questions which are stimulating in African society today. My name is Faizan Ali, and you're watching a series of Fortunate Interviews. I'll start with the conversation which suits your location at the moment, the mental health in a workplace. Like you've been posting a lot about that as well, and you've been an activist for mental health in workplace. What do you see situation, especially in African region? What's the biggest issues when it comes to mental health in a workplace?
It is quite disheartening how mental health has been treated, not just in Africa. I think it's a global issue. Africa has also been grossly affected by mental health and workplace mental health. COVID-19 further revealed how prevalent this has been across workplaces globally, and Africa also is not left out. But one of the critical issues we have here is the inability of most countries in Africa to be able to have what you call a clear country-wide mental health policy. Most countries don't have national mental health policy, and because that doesn't exist, there is really no document you can lay hold on that you say this is what the policy or the guideline we are looking at to see how we can promote, how we can support, or how we can improve behavior towards mental health mental health issues in Africa. And again, it's also that absence of those legislation has also been enabled or fueled by the presence. I think we should agree with that of colonial time, where we had things like ordinances. Nigeria is a clear example. Nigeria relied on the lunacy ordinance that was there as about 1952. And that's a very old document until Nigeria finally signed the Mental Health Act 2002 or so. But the mental health ordinance that was even there did not empower doctors to treat mental health, do not empower people that are suffering mental health to access care, but it empowered the magistrates on how to deal with mental health people. When they have mental health issues. And these are clear things I think we have to deal with. But a number of countries are still struggling with this now across Africa, but a number of countries have done well. Countries like Nigeria, countries like Zambia, countries like South Africa, Ghana, and a number of other countries have started putting useful policies in place. But this is the way we're now. It's improving, but we need more countries to actually take meaningful decisions and act on their mental health policies.
Yeah. Africa has, you mentioned colonialism earlier, right? What is the effect of a Western influence in Africa right now? I know like before it was much more, but now there's a change coming in last, I would say like 5 to 10 years. And there's a lot of resistance coming from African region when it comes to Western influence, right? What is your opinion about this? And how is it actually affecting a general public? Because that is my main concern. When it comes to politics, it's a very different ball game. Politicians themselves have a lot of, you can say, leeway when it comes to, for example, like travel or maybe even when it comes to finances. But what effect is Western culture or Western countries have on African population, like general population? That is my main concern.
Okay, it is just natural for you to want to grow up to act like your father. It's a natural thing. And that was what happened in Africa. Most of the countries in Africa were colonized by different countries, and these countries now want to behave like their colonial masters. And this was what we met on ground, and where the generation before us want to submit and take draft and script from colonial masters. They tell you to go left, you go left. They tell you to go right, you go right. And that was what we meant on ground. But the truth is, though in those days, there were also people who thought ahead, people like Kwame Nkrumah and Julius Nyerere. I talk of people like Nnamdi Azikiwe. These guys were nationalists, were forward thinkers, looking at the future of Africa, and they posed the earliest resistance we had. I mean, trying to see Africa can behave like Africa, Africa can take charge of Africa situation. But the truth is, we have seen a whole lot of influence. I mean, is still wading into Africa. But I'm happy to see the generation that we have right now, and I like what's going on. And what they are only asking is, we want to think for ourselves, don't think for us. And I think that's just natural thing to demand for. You can't. I mean, I have children, but I realize even my generation, the way we think, and the generation of my children, our thinking patterns are different. If you were thinking for me in my own interest, it would have been nice. You are not thinking for me in my own interest. You are thinking for me, teleguiding me, but in your own interest. And this is where the problem is. So if you look at before now, and we talk of in terms of Western cultural invasion into Africa. Africa, everywhere you hear, you go to parties, you go to clubs. Every music was being played in clubs. I mean, in the 90s, in the late 80s and of 90s, were all Western music. So there were music that were composed and done by Africans. They were not played in clubs. But if you look at it today, the new African generation have made it mandatory for African music to be heard. And African music is everywhere, not just in African clubs or African countries. African music has now become a very big tool that Africans are selling to the world. Everywhere you go to in Africa, I saw a friend recently told me he lives in Sweden, that he got to a club, there was this music he was hearing in the club. He said, it turned my head. I had to go and ask, who is the artist? He told me, he's a Nigerian. So I had to Google it, downloaded that music. These are the things we are doing. So we're not waiting to be told what to do. We are waiting to do what we know is right. And that's why you see the agitation that will be happening within the Francophone area. And which of course is true. You can't keep taking people's resources and tell them they are poor. It doesn't make any sense. When you are putting sand in the food of a blind man and feeding him with that food, you put the sand to an extent that the blind man knows that there's difference between this food and sand. There's sand in this food. And that's what the Francophone Africans are realizing. They were under the tutelage of the French people for so long. And but this cannot last for too long. They have resources. You are not allowing them to take their resources to use them for their own good. Everything, there were agreements that are some unfavorable agreements that were entered at the time the independence were given to them, and they are afraid to go against this agreement. I mean, talk about countries like look at Cote d'Ivoire as a clear example. Look at Senegal, look at Niger, look at Mali, look at Burkina Faso, look at Equatorial Guinea, look at Congo. These are countries that are blessed with so much natural resources. Look at Sudan. But you see, there has been so much invasion of their wealth. And you tempt them, you are bold enough to say these are poor countries. If you want to list the poorer countries in the world right now, I'm telling you, bulk of those countries African countries will be listed. But the question we're asking, how did Africa become so poor? Yet Africa is blessed with so much natural resources. The people who are listing these countries as poor countries are the ones stealing this wealth that belong to this country. You paint children, oh, these are malnourished children. Yes, I agree, they are malnourished, they have no food to eat. They have no food to eat because you took their breakfast, you took their lunch, you took part of their dinner. Why won't they become malnourished? So we need to allow African countries, to lead, to be able to actually, live as countries. They're independent countries, autonomous countries. Don't try to force or break into the activities of that country. If you do not have the way, you look for people within the country that will support your cause. You give them some money. They set up troubles. No, we should stop. Since Africans are wiser now, I think what we are asking for is Africans to come together as one great continent. Let's trade amongst ourselves. Let's watch each other's back. Let Africans be able to explore what they have as natural resources, and let them be able to take control of those things and build infrastructures and build roads and build hospitals and build good education, so that children that we saw that we called malnourished children are able to have food on their table. Children that we called that we said they are illiterate are able to go to school. Children that fall sick for reason of hygiene or whatever it is are able to have good toilets to use, are able to go see hospitals to go to when they fall sick. I mean, this is not too much to ask. Africans should be left alone to build Africans. Homegrown solution is what we have as the solution to African problems.
One thing I've always asked people who have came on my show as guests, especially people who are from countries like Africa, African countries,
No, hold on. Africa is not a country. Africa is a
that's why I
continent.
corrected, like from African countries and Asian countries and continents like this who were part of colonialism, because like how you mentioned earlier, like older generations, they came with that mentality because they were part of colonialism, and now people are changing. Even though generation now, probably not my generation, but generation which will be after me, will be much more different. The thing that I always ask is, this is the situation where evolution is happening, right? Evolution in terms of generations, and then the revolution will be coming. But to raise a revolution, you need leaders. And you don't need one leader. You need plenty of leaders in different levels. So of course there will be a leader who will be your prime minister, president, or in the government, but then there will be leaders who are in the society, who will be in the education sector, who will be in different areas of workplace. There will be people who are activists. These are the people who generations will be watching, that like, okay, now we need to change. What is change? If you're not going to recognize what is change, when you're not going to understand that, like, okay, this is what our past was, but this is not who we are. The world now is much different from 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So in Africa right now, do you see leaders like this, not just in the government, but in the society? And if there are a few names that you can mention, that would be nice as well.
You know why? You know why I'm happy at the Africa that is growing right now. we have new crops of African youths, new crops of African leaders who are saying, I don't need AIDS that will corrupt my system. That I don't need AIDS that will put me in perpetual poverty. I don't need AIDS that will hold me bound to whosoever the creditor is. All I want to do is focus on what I can grow within me and see how I can build a nation. And we have such leaders everywhere. And let me quickly draw your attention to the fact that if you go to New York today, right, some of the most sought after doctors, physicians in New York, they are Nigerians. Go to California, anywhere you go to in the US today, some of the people that are most educated in America today, most of them are Africans, and no doubt. But the truth is, the leaders we had before now, who still have hold in the political tool of any nation, are still the problems we have in Africa. But it's not going to be for too long. And I'm happy the way younger people are stepping up and beginning to ask questions. When you ask questions for too long, it's obvious that one day you'll find an answer. That's what we're doing. We're asking questions. Whatever they give to us as possible, this is the reason or why this is like this. We don't just take it hook, line, and sinker. We interrogate those things that they say to us and see how true it is. When we interrogate those things, from there we're able to find solutions. And this is what's happening across African countries. You have younger people who are telling you, we can't go like this anymore. And most of them schooled in the West. Most of them have traveled and they see what's obtainable in other part of the world. And they are coming back to ask themselves, why are we like this? What is the problem? So those questions that everybody is asking across Africa is part of the evolution, gradually leading us somewhere. So but someday where we sit and ask, we have asked this question enough, I think we have an answer. When we have those answers, those people, those old leaders that have held Africa bound, they would run away from Africa, because Africa has the highest population of younger people in the world. I mean, sub-Saharan Africa, and we have intelligent people, and we need to see how we can how we can look at ourselves, eyeball to eyeball and ask ourselves, have we really done well? Why are we at this level? If we are at this level, what are the reasons that have kept us at this level? And once those questions are beginning to pop up, and people are able to relate, and come back to that again, this is the reason, this is one of the reasons why they put boundaries in Africa, so that the man in Nigeria will not have the opportunity to travel without visa to go and talk to the man in Mozambique. The man in Mozambique will not have the opportunity to travel without visa to go and talk to the man in Ghana. The moment these restrictions are removed, I can put up a trip and say I'm going to Lesotho. I'm going to speak with my brother in Lesotho. What's going on? So we need to take these things out first, so that Africans are able to talk to Africans. And these restrictions you're seeing in Africa, in terms of the visa and all what have you, these are still part of the extension of colonial rule. Because look at African Union as a clear example. African Union is older than the EU. But if you look at it clearly, the EU is doing so well, but African Union is doing nothing. But EU has removed the boundaries. You can travel amongst all the EU countries without any hesitation or any restriction. But Africa, you can't do that. They bound us together to our countries. We can't be expressive. To move to another country, we can't do so much. And at the end of the day, it's a big problem. I can't say I want to export my merchandise from here right now, maybe to Mali or to maybe to Ethiopia. I don't have that visa. And even outside the visa, you find out that the cost of traveling across Africa has become a problem. These are all part of the extension of the colonialism that we still suffer. I was going to Zambia last year. My cost, what I spent leaving Lagos to get to Zambia. I was going to a place called Livingstone in Zambia. What I spent from Nigeria to get to Zambia was more than what I would spend to get to New York and back. So you look at it. So, and when you look, and again, the connections are so bad. I can board the flight from Lagos and I end up in New York. But for me to get to Zambia, I had to first board the flight from Lagos. I ended up in Kigali in the evening, and there was no flight out of Kigali to Zambia immediately, except the next day. I had to sleep over in Kigali to continue my journey again the next day. From Kigali, I boarded the flight 9 o'clock in Kigali, 9 p.m. to get to Lusaka before I could get the flight from Lusaka to Livingstone. And when you look at this, you just wasted my time. Time I have to my life, attached to my life, you wasted part of it. But yet, while I was busy doing this, the man that left Nigeria going to New York has reached New York at even a more affordable cost. So these are the issues. So you find out that it is easier for a man to export to New York. It is cheaper for him. It is more direct for him than a man to export his product to Lusaka. You see, these are some of the issues, and I think we won't. It is to be too unfair to continually hold the West responsible for this. We need African Union. African Union. We need people that can think in African Union. We need to see African Union. We need to see more modern day thinking Africans taking responsibility, taking seats of authority in African Union. We don't like the system that we have as of today. We need an African Union that we can boldly call our African Union, not their African Union. What we have today is their African Union. It's not our African Union. We need African Union that we can take ownership of, we can call our own, that we know that decisions, policies are made in the interest of entire Africans. I challenge them today. Let them take all the visa requirements that Africans need to travel to other African countries. We don't need it. We don't need it. I need visa to travel to Morocco, but somebody from the EU doesn't need visa to travel to Morocco. If that person is my business competitor, will I get the business in Morocco? Yet I live in Africa. If it gets while I'm still looking for visa, trying to travel to get visa, the guy will be in Morocco. He will close the deal. By the time I get to Morocco, I'm told that the deal has been closed by the person that came first. So we need to just shy away from. We need to just own up to the lapses and see how we can fix Africa, not just for us anymore, because I mean, people like us right now, we have moved past 50% of our existence on Earth, but we must feed Africa for our children, and that is something we must do.
I feel like this visible hand, which is playing certain roles in our regions, not just Africa, I feel like in a lot of continents as well, these invisible hands have created certain, you can say, like restrictions, which some of them are continuous restrictions and some of them are, like trigger based. For example, like how you mentioned about the diplomatic regions where you need the visa and all that, that is something which is continuous, like, but that is just one layer. I feel like there are a few other layers as well. For example, like one of them is religious and ethnic acceptance. Like, for example, between you and me earlier today, when we were discussing about the schedule for this meeting, you knew about my religion and you were happily accommodating me to change your time. If we have any issue, then we can never come to a conclusion. And because we both respect each other's religion and we know about each other's religion, so it is very easy for us to accommodate and accept each other. But whenever this invisible hand they want and they want to raise some tensions whenever things are going out of hand, this becomes a problem. And this is one of the biggest problems that I see in a lot of regions, like in Asia as well. Whenever they want, they play a race card or they play a religion card, and there is anarchy. You look at Africa, you can look at Sudan. I mean, they split Sudan because of religion, and they have split Nigeria because of religion as well. And there are a lot of other regions in Africa which have been split apart just because of the base of religion and ethnicity as well. Because in Africa, when people call, like, okay, he's African, I feel like it's like calling somebody European. Europe is a big continent. Like there are a lot of
Yeah.
ethnicities over there, just like Africa. And to be honest, like if I didn't grew up with my friends who studied with me who were from Africa, I would probably think that, like in whole of Africa, everybody's same. And that's the thing, like now, but society nowadays, they know more about it. And this is one of the biggest issues which I feel should be highlighted, that, like these are the layers that, like we need to understand that these are invisible layers, but it shouldn't affect general society. If general society doesn't have an issue with it, then we won't actually like get into this politics.
Let me show it. Let me show
Sure.
it. You see, when they want to destabilize a smooth condition, that's when they play those cards.
Yeah.
When they are stealing money, there's no religion. Do you understand?
Yeah.
When they form an alliance to steal money, to take what belongs to the people, nobody asks, what's your religion? Who is a Muslim? Who is a Christian? Who is a Hindu? Nobody asks that. If religion does not come in your ways, when you come together to steal the resources that belong to the people, how come religion come in the way when we are discussing things that will bring progress to the people? It's just what they have used for so long. The earlier we understand their system, the better for us. Like I said earlier, our generation is not. We are not in that mind pattern that they have. Like you said just now. I mean, I'm a Christian. You're a Muslim. It doesn't create difference between you and I. And that's the new generation we are having. Everybody has a right to practice what he believes, and that should be respected. And when they bring this in, I mean, that was cascaded down from international level, even in countries right now. Nigeria is a clear example, and other countries. When the politicians are busy dividing money, it's fine. Nobody mentions ethnicity. Nobody mentions religion. But when we now say, okay, can we do projects that will benefit the people? That will now say it's against our Catholic faith. This one will say, oh, it's against our Sharia faith. It doesn't make any sense. And they put this thing in the way of progress to ensure nobody moves further. But you know what? We should start discussing this and taking this off our way and moving forward. The only way to move forward is if we can take ethnicity out of the way, take religion out of the way, and take politics out of the way. These are critical issues that stand in the way of progress, not just in Africa, but I mean Africa and Asia most suffer about the same thing. We need to take this up the way so that we can make progress. And we need to understand the fact that it's not about me, it is about us. That meism need to be taken out. All we look at is, I mean, you look at someone has stolen so much that he doesn't even need for his lifetime. Those mindset, I mean, such people should be taken hold of and thrown into the prison for the rest of their life. Because I think to an extent there's something that is fundamentally wrong. You also see poverty also plays a great role. You and illiteracy as well. You and I, we are educated. Somebody who thought he could never handle about $10,000 for the rest of his life. That it was never in his dream. All of a sudden, he found out that he didn't go to school. He started moving close to politicians. And people in power. And over time, they say, "Okay, you come in. I think you come close enough. Take this political appointment."
Yeah.
And the person finds out that the first document they give to him to sign, approval in the office, that he needs to approve funds. That he approve funds up to the tune of $75,000 for a project. He goes mad. So I can approve this. Then that's the end of that person. He loses his mind entirely. All he's looking for, he wants to pay for the years that he suffered. He wants to steal money to make up for the years that he suffered lack. We should learn. We should learn to take this out of the way. And again, we should also learn to see how we can. The more we have people that have access to education, not just going to school, have access to education, and the more the thinking pattern of the people are shaped. I mean, one of the strongest tools to reform the man is education. And that's why you see, even in most countries, education, they are not accessible and they are not even affordable. Education, again, now becomes what only the rich and their children can afford. What about the children of the man who doesn't have? That means poverty had to be on a vicious circle. Their parents were poor, they couldn't go to school. Now the parents cannot send their children to school. Their children become poor because they didn't go to school. They give birth to children. Then the chain of poverty continues. We need to look at this closely and see what we can do better, because every child has a right to access quality education, and that's one of the strongest tools we can give to our people.
One of my very good friend, he used to be, he is a historian, and he used to study in one of the Turkish university. He was one of the lecturers over there. He said one thing which always triggered me, and I feel like it's a very interesting concept, and I always agree with it. But like when there are certain things which you have to take it with a pinch of salt, because it's true, but still, because you are affected by it, it hurts you. And he said that a war is not lost, or you don't lose your house because you don't have security. You lose your house because of greed. And in all of the wars in the history, the wars most of the time are lost because of the greed of the people who are protecting themselves. You could have the best security in the world, but if the person who's controlling the security has greed in him, you're not protected.
Absolutely, that's very correct, and I think that validates the fact. If you look at Burkina Faso as of today, that young man Traore, I salute his courage, I salute his doggedness, and I salute his belief for the new concept of Africanism. That guy has survived multiple coups d'etat within 1 year. And who is plotting this? The truth is that if you know you don't have the boldness, the resilience to pay the price for what you believe in, don't start the journey of bringing forth the change that you think is necessary. I've read through books. I mean, my father opened me up to Africanism early enough. I read books. My father was a literature and history teacher, so he opened me up to books I needed to read and to know more about Africa at a very tender age. And one of the books that reformed me was the compilation of Ahmed Sekou Toure of Guinea. I read that book when I was 14 years old. And when you look at all that they were talking about at that time, talking about national movement, Africanism, it's what we have as of today's day. Look at Thomas Sankara. Look at the change he brought into Africa. But we knew what happened. The truth is that the moment they know what you're bringing in, I mean, we distort or we impact negatively on their greed or what they benefit. The next thing is, like you said, I mean, those who you take as a security who are greedy elements have become a stooge in their hands to implement what they want to implement. But the truth is, until African problem becomes a problem that we all believe is our problem, we can't solve it. A few people still do not believe that African problem is their problem. Why? Because they still get benefits from those that put them in wherever they are and get little pittance. The truth is, whatsoever you think you are getting right now as benefits, no matter how little or how huge it may be, when Africa problems are solved and Africa is able to stand to express itself, you'll be better off. You'll have more dignity. You have more honor, more pride than what you think you have now. We are better off when we have 50% of our people or 80% of our people, we are all doing well. It makes more sense than having 20% or 2% of our people, they are the ones that have the resources. It doesn't make any sense. We need resources to circulate across Africa. And one of the ways to do that is, firstly, we must see Africa as our collective problem. We must look for solutions to this problem. And we must be honest to ourselves. There's no need of saying, I'm a Nigerian or I'm from Togo, I'm from Burkina Faso, I'm from Mali, or my people first. No. So long as you are an African, Africa should come first in your conversation. The first time I went to Zambia, and I was giving my opening remark in the conference in Zambia. I told them I would like to, in the context of this conference, I would like to introduce myself as an African who was born in Nigeria. And that was deliberate because I introduced myself in that manner because we need to see it. Because when I looked at myself among Zambians, there was nothing like, there was no difference. You only get to know that I'm from Nigeria when I speak or when you get to hear of my name. So long as you are a black person living in Africa, I'm also a white person living in Africa, you were born in Africa. Firstly, you are an African. So you were born in your country doesn't mean that is your priority. Africa should be your priority. That's what I said. I am an African who was born in Nigeria. If we all look at ourselves in that manner and in that light, we will flag the flag of Africa first before we fly the flag of our countries. And once we begin to do that, Africa will see themselves as one people and will begin to take the bull by the horn and see how we can change issues that collectively impact on all of us generally.
Yeah, I think one thing that you mentioned in your last conversation is about taking responsibility yourself, realizing that a lot of things are in your hands. And I think that this is one of the things that a lot of younger generation don't have right now. I would say like I don't want to generalize, but a lot of them don't have. And this is something that I realized when I was working in football industry. I used to get a lot of African players in my club. And I used to have a lot of conversation with them because it was just a couple of us who could actually speak English, and people who were coming from Africa. We needed to relay the message to the management. And this is one thing that I realized, that when things are not going according to their plan, they had this ideology that, is because they are African players, that's why they are not getting the opportunity. Which I kept on telling them that, if you have this belief, then you cannot move forward. The coach is there to coach you, and he bought you because he saw ability in you. And I'm telling you your mistakes. I'm telling you that, you need to work on this thing. So if you're not going to work on this, you will not get opportunities. If you're not even going to get opportunities over here, which is Asia, then how do you expect yourself to be more competitive when you go to European leagues? And you want to play, and you just want to skip all of this process of learning and training and everything, and just straight away you want somebody to come and give you a contract for Manchester United or Chelsea. This is never going to happen. So
You're right. You're right.
this is, yeah, and I see this mentality not just in Africans, in a lot of regions, even people who are coming from America. When I say Americas, I mean like Brazil and Argentina and all that. They come with a mentality that because they're born footballers, which they are, they have the talent, because Brazilians, Africans, they're born talented. But it doesn't mean that, you will get a red carpet, that, like, just because you're born talented, you'll get in the team. You have to work for it. And there are 100 people who are working for it. So if you're not going to compete with them, then you will never get a chance. And you'll just keep on blaming.
Yeah, yeah. You see, we've done that for too long.
Yeah.
We've done that, and that's why you said when I said earlier, I said most times it's also important to know that we have blamed the West enough for our problems. We need to blame ourselves as well. That's why we're talking about we need to hold African Union accountable in about things. What some of the things we've done is that we believe freedom should be handed over to us on a platter of gold. No, war most times precedes peace. You don't need to wait and whatsoever you think you need is handed over to you on a platter. There's a moment, it's a transition. There's a moment of learning. There's a moment of struggling. There's a moment you become a champion. And these are all phases you must go through. When I started working in the healthcare sector, I mentioned to you the last time, my first degree is mass communication. That was what my first degree in university. And the only place I got a job when I finished school was in the hospital. I was one of the few persons that was a non-clinical person in the hospital environment, in full clinical environment. You know how it is. I was so discriminated against. I couldn't even say a word in the midst of doctors. I mean, even the nurses had their own banters from doctors. This is someone that was not even a nurse, not a lab scientist, not a radiologist, coming from a total media background. One thing I told myself is, if I do not buckle up in this place, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. Because they know definitely they want to talk to me. They will come and talk to me. See, the truth is that most of the things that we communicate in those medical jargons, they have English words. They will come and talk to me with those medical jargons. It's just to further get me confused. And I really got confused. But I didn't blame them for my predicament. I told myself, what they know, I will know. And that's the only way. Because if we cannot establish communication, we can't make progress. I told myself, what they know, I will know. So when they come and tell me some things I do not understand, I'll write that word down. When they leave, I throw the word into Google. What does it really mean? So I was learning at a faster speed. There was a doctor, an Indian doctor who was working with us, a gynecologist. So I always go to meet him because he noticed I was eager to learn, but he was available to teach me. That guy taught me everything I knew to be able to survive in a clinical environment. It got to a point that the doctors and I could communicate. When they are talking, I understand what they're talking about. When I'm talking, they understand. At this point, we're able to have a system, have communication, and we respected each other. When they were doing that to me, if I had felt, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not from the clinical background, that's why I'm suffering this, I would have learned what I learned at that time in my career. But those things I learned today, I learned as I then, are useful to me till today. Some of the things I do in my organization right now, I do training on patient safety, I do training on healthcare system. I have doctors, I have nurses, they all come clinical, but they come for my training. So if I didn't learn at that time, at this time I would have been handicapped. But I didn't have to blame people for what I was going through. And that's most times it's an issue of the mind. The more you blame people, the more you lose the opportunity you have to learn. Everybody is the problem except you. Look at yourself. You look at yourself also. What do I need to do? If people that I'm working with, they're educated, they have master's degree, I'm the only one that's coming with I have maybe national diploma, that's all I have. Know that when they put in 70% of their effort into work, you learn to put in 150%. You just have to learn to, so that you can measure up and know that there's a deficiency that you need to fix. Because you're the only one that has about maybe an honorary national diploma. Everybody is highly educated. Instead of complaining and looking at, I'm being treated in this manner because I am not this or because I'm this, measure up, go back to school. See what you can do. As in this office where I'm seated, this was the office I sat where I have 2 master's degree. Do you understand? I had 2 master's degree from this office because I knew I needed this thing to take me to the next level. I needed those knowledge, those qualifications, to take me to the next level. When I leave my house at that time, I leave my house at sometimes 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. I get to the office on or before 7. I join the class. I join online classes till 8 till 9 o'clock before my work starts fully. And when everybody it's time to close at 5 o'clock, everybody leaves. I stay back. I join the class again from 5 to 7 p.m. These were the time I have to give to fix those inadequacies, those gaps I needed to fix. But I didn't blame anybody. But when we keep blaming people, this person did not give me the opportunity because I'm being treated like this because I'm an African. I'm being treated like this because I have nobody to watch over me because my father is not rich. No. Whether your father is rich or not, I mean, most people that come from poor background have the best pedestal to spring forth. Most of people that you see that are multi-millionaire, their parents never went to school. Their parents were poor people, but they were hungry for success, and every hungry for success. Everywhere they saw opportunity, they took it. So I don't subscribe to that. Blame people for what. No, we must take responsibility for what is happening to us, for what has happened to us, and for what we see happen to us. It's our responsibility. People could be safe with different kind of adversity, but they come out of those adversity in different ways and in different shapes. What makes the difference if your approach towards that adversity? Adversity breaks some people, adversity makes some people strong, and adversity makes some people to succeed. So it depends on the part of the divide that you want to believe in. But for me, let the adversity come, I will succeed with it. That is my view.
It's a really nice message to end the conversation. I really appreciate it. And, thank you so much, Ehi. I really appreciate your time. And we definitely need to do this again because the issues that the society have in general are a lot, and we need to raise awareness for those. And if you have a few last words that you want to say, I would really appreciate it before we end the conversation.
Okay, before we leave, I just want to just put this forth that Africa as a region has gone through a lot. This is an appeal to everyone who was responsible, who is still responsible, and who has a further intention to be responsible for African woes. I need to beg you. There are a lot of children that go to bed every day without food, not because they don't have appetite to eat. Their parents can't put food on their table. If you are one of those responsible, please, before you make your decision, think about the plight of these children. Before you take that funds that belong to the public, think about the children that will suffer as a result of the funds you have stolen. Africa has become a country or a place that has been raped multiple times by multiple people. It's losing its breath, and every day it stands up, pretend to be strong, and put up a strong face. We really need to build Africa. Africans are good people. Africa has a lot of resources that can sustain Africa even in its lifetime. If you are one of those who prefer with the resources of Africa, who is stealing African resources, we beg of you, please desist from it. We need Africa to grow, and if Africa must grow, it means its resources should not be stolen. It's called Commonwealth of Africa. It belongs to us all, not to a few people who can steal. The younger African generation, we don't want to steal. We want to work. We want to put strategies, put our mind to work, and build the Africa we want. If you stand in the way of the Africa we want, whether you are an African, you are a foreigner, you are an enemy to Africa. We must rise as Africans, as a people, irrespective of color, irrespective of language, irrespective of national boundaries. We must rise. We work together for the interest, not just of us who are here right now, but in the interest of generation of Africans to come. If Africans cannot help Africa, there is no one that can help Africans. On this note, I say thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Ehi. I really appreciate your time. Have a nice day.
Thanks so much.